Bull. Let me clean my lens for a second. Okay. Looks decent on my end. Not exactly 4K, but it'll suffice. So, before people come into the chat room, I'm gonna talk to you guys who will be seeing this on replay. So this topic for this stream is does your city need the National Guard? Because Baltimore does. And I stand on that completely. We Baltimore is a hellscape. You literally can't go one day in the news without hearing of people being unalived. And it comes out today that the president plans on deploying the National Guard to 19 different states. However, I don't think he's deploying them to Maryland. And I think part of that is because there's been some these this is completely my own uninformed opinions on this, but Governor Westmore has been talking with um, the Trump administration. He sent him a letter, and I think there's been some backdoor negotiating as far as keeping the National Guard out of Maryland. So my suspicion is that there's been some backdoor negotiations between Governor Westmore and the Trump administration to not have National Guard come to Baltimore, but we'll see. I mean, what's up, Carlton? But it looks as if it looks patently obvious that Governor Westmore has presidential ambitions for 2028. He and Gavin Newsom have been in the national spotlight. And trust me, when politicians are in the national spotlight, it's because they want to be in the national spotlight. Other than, unless it's something of a like crisis going on in their state, or or if they've, committed some sort of political malfeasance, then they want to be in the national spotlight, because they're testing the waters for a presidential bid. And let's be clear, it is often the case that governors from California and governors from Maryland tend to have presidential ambitions. Why? California is one of the leading states in the nation. Um, if it was a sovereign country, it would have one of the largest economies in the world. So generally, anyone who becomes governor of California is in prime position to run for president. Likewise with Maryland. Maryland isn't a large state, but what I will say is, if you look at the social and political geography of Maryland, it is a microcosm of the nation. Also, because Maryland is right there next to Washington D.C., it is often the case that many Maryland governors often, you know, hold presidential ambitions. Whether you're talking about the former governor Larry Hogan, the former governor Martin O'Malley, and others, like these two sorts of states, governors in these states rather, would be the type that would probably have presidential ambitions. And like I said, that is what gives me the suspicions that Westmore has been doing some wheeling and dealing with the presidential administration behind closed doors to try to prevent National Guard from coming into Maryland, because it would embarrass Westmore if it did, and pretty much like politically defenestrate him because he's been on the news both locally and nationally talking about, well, as the governor of Maryland, I'm the commander in chief of the Maryland National Guard, and I won't let them be deployed here when that is not their duty to do law enforcement and all that sort of stuff. But again, it's pretty. I've said this a number of times, both here on the channel and and offline in my personal life, where I've said it's pretty rich that both the Baltimore City mayor and the Maryland governor talk about Baltimore being more safe than it used to be, and saying that they don't need federal law enforcement nor National Guard to come in and make things safe, when those two jerk offs get to walk around with personal security detail anywhere they go in Baltimore. So yeah, I would feel pretty safe in the worst parts of Baltimore as well, like Penn North, Cherry Hill, or Park Heights, or you know um, Edmondson Village and other places. When I have a whole personal security detail follow me, I would feel relatively safe too. So I don't want this to just be about Baltimore. I'm curious because I see quite a few of you guys in the chat room right now. How would you feel about National Guard coming to your states? And be aware that Trump has already announced today that he does plan on sending National Guard to 19 states in the country. So your state might be one of them. I don't remember the listing of all of them. I can look that up for you guys if you like. I know Virginia is one of them. Um, but yeah, I'll look that up. But I'm curious, like, if you're still here, Carlton, maybe you can tell me what you think. But would you think your where you live could benefit from National Guard coming through? Do you think that would make it worse? Do you think it would make things too tense? Like how would you guys feel about that? So I'm looking it up which states that is so I can tell you guys. So for people in the chat room, if you're in those states, you could tell me what you think about National Guard possibly being deployed there. Sorry, I have a really crappy keyboard. And so since I'm also holding the phone, I can't type too fastly. I apologize on that. So yeah, so I'm looking at one news source here. This is Fox News, but this wasn't just on Fox News. But it says National Guard rollout in 19 states not linked to Trump's crime crackdown, the White House says. So I'm going to have to put on my glasses, guys. Sorry. I know I look nerdy with them. However, I am a nerd, though. I'm just been a nerd for like the past 40 plus years that never needed glasses. And if I get the money, I will be getting LASIK. So, mm, mm, you put this in read mode. I like how the websites now have this reader mode. I don't think Bing has it, or I have to download the extension to make it like that. Never mind. I'll just read it as is since I have my reading glasses on. But this comes again from Fox News, and I apologize for people in advance who dislike Fox News. I can find another source afterwards if people don't trust this. That's fair. But I'll read this. So the White House says National Guard activations in 19 states are unrelated to President Donald Trump's push to expand Washington, D.C.'s federal crime crackdown to other cities. Up to 1,700 National Guardsmen are set to mobilize in 19 states in the coming weeks to assist the Department of Homeland Security with the administration's nationwide crackdown on illegal immigration. That operation was initially announced last month and is not linked to potential federal intervention in crime plagued cities, a White House official told Fox News. Um, this isn't new, nor is it tied to the president's effort to address violent crime in D.C., the official said late Friday. DOD announced last month the National Guard troops would assist DHS with clerical support and other logistical tasks for processing illegal aliens at ICE facilities. It is separate from the federal interagency crime crackdown. Um, Trump activated the National Guard in Washington, D.C. earlier this month as part of an effort to slash violent crime in the nation's capital. Touting the operation's success, at least 466, at least 465 arrests have been made. Uh, Trump last Trump has signaled he intends to broaden the DC mission to other cities. We're going to make it safe. We're going to go to on to other places, he told federal agents and guard troops Thursday at a DC patrol center. On Friday, Trump added, I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York. The White House insisted that the operations are separate. The National Guard mobilizing to assist ICE processing with clerical and logistical tasks in several states is not the same as the president's actions to stop crime in D.C., the official said. The deployment of 1,700 National Guardsmen was first announced on July 25th in a Pentagon press release. Their roles include collecting personal data, fingerprinting, DNA swabbing, and photographing detainees so ICE agents can focus on enforcement. So I'm gonna finish reading this in a second, but I didn't see all my um, um, chats till now, so I'm gonna address those and then I'll finish. But Daddy Go Go, what's going on? Carlton says, to be honest, where there is a black Democrat mayor, the National Guard is needed. Sending the Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs are on the shit list of U.S. SOCOM right now, but that's a whole different discussion. But this is why you haven't seen Navy SEALs active in a lot of um, special ops missions lately because they're kind of on the shit list. But the less to be said about that, the better. The funny thing is, you're exactly right about that. And so Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott tried to say, well, that's because Trump is racist. So that's why he's targeting these cities that have black Democrat mayors. It's like, no, you got the causal error wrong. Um, these black Democrat mayors aren't running these cities well. And so that's why they need to send in reinforcement on the federal level to help because pretty much everywhere these you have black Democrat leaders, it's a crappy place to live for the average person. Now, for someone who's you know of the elite, it doesn't matter where you live because you can always afford to live in a, secluded, protected space with security. So, but that doesn't help the average person, does it? So no, it's not racist that the the Trump has criticized these cities that are run by black mayors and black local politicians. Rather, what is racist is the fact that these black people think that they can run these cities incompetently and not be questioned for it because they're black. That's racist. Um, so someone told me to be quiet. Go suck a dick, Amanda. How about that? That's pretty much probably the only thing you're good at. Anyway, Carlton says um, to Daddy Gogo, how do you know how to read? Look at the title of the. They never look at the titles, Carlton, and that's what bugs me out. Because people say, well, you don't have to know the titles of the strings before you jump into them. That is completely true. However, it would behoove the person to know the content of the string before they jump into it. That's what I would do. But I'm not an autistic moron that stays up all night just jumping from stream to stream. So I'm different, I guess, because I'm neurotypical. Carter says send the troops to Memphis. Oh yeah, because they weren't they number one. So it was like Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah, I think Memphis was number one, right? And then it was Detroit, Michigan. I think was number two. Baltimore was number three. Carter says the 19 states were mentioned on Reddit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would have posted them on Reddit. I'm reading through the article and it didn't list the 19 states, so I'm gonna go to another article to actually read off each state. So I can be clear to everyone what what states are supposed to be getting the assist for for the doing all of the stuff that they need to do to remove illegal immigrants and bringing and even though it's not directly related to bringing down violent crime, detaining illegal immigrants will bring down crime. People who live under the radar tend to not live uh, in the best ways. So, you know, in any case, let me finish this article and then I'll look for the actual 19 states since it doesn't like since after I skimmed the article, it doesn't look like it mentions it. So I'll finish. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I still see some more comments. I'm sorry. What's up, Krista? I saw your comments on my previous post, so nice to see you in my live stream. She says everybody deserves to raise their families in a safe environment. Democrats fail these communities and have for decades. Right, and that's why I say it's the racism of low expectations for me, and then they flip it and say, "Oh, you want to hold us to account that's racist." It's like, no, it's not. What's racist is that you think that merely being not non-white that you can be an incompetent politician and not be called out for it. Like that's what kills me, you know. Um, and she's absolutely right. Everyone deserves to be, you know, safe. But in any case, so under the Passe Comitatus Act of 19 of oh I'm saying I used to, believe it or not, I actually took Latin in the ninth grades, but I never got down the accent. Apparently, classical Latin sounds a little like Italian, Cal Caprese, right? The the language that comes from ancient Italy would sound like Italian, but I don't know how to affect that accent. Like now when I speak French, I can affect the accent, not so much so with Latin. So anyway, plus it would probably just sound very goofy if I. But anyway, so under the Passe Comitatus Act of 1878, the use of federal armed forces for civilian law enforcement is generally prohibited, but the National Guard will operate under the Title 32, Section 502F authority, which does not apply to Passe Comitatus. At the request of DHS, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in July approved hundreds of additional forces for ICE support and switched existing approvals from Title 10 to Title 32 status. Okay. We understand ISIS needs at that time to be more administrative in nature. As planning continued and working with our partners, it became clear more that ICE needed something different, a U.S. defense official told Fox News. Meanwhile, 2,279 National Guard soldiers and airmen from Washington, D.C. and 6 states are already mobilized in the capital, having completed training, according to a Joint Task Force spokesperson. The spokesperson described the figures as an estimate, quote unquote, but said that they are the most accurate available. Under direct presidential authority, Guard members have been posted to monuments, checkpoints, and traffic stops across all 8 wards with a mission of deterring crime and maintaining a visible security presence. So I'm just going to interject here. So there are specific wards within DC that are more violent than others. I think wards 7 and 8 are the most violent, and I'm pretty sure those are the ones across the for people who know the DMV. Ward 7 and 8 are the ones across the Anacostia River. Those are the shittiest parts of DC. Anyway, so at Hexef's authorization, those guard members can now carry weapons if needed, but unlike the states where guard forces fall under governor's command, in DC, they operate under direct presidential authority because, as you guys remember, DC is a federal district. It's not a state, nor is it a city within a state. It is its own separate. Um, it is its own separate institution that is a part of the federal government. So anyway, so although the Pentagon framed the mobilization differently as a uh, quote a support pillar to a nationwide crackdown on crime and illegal immigration unquote, the White House argued that planning for National Guard activation in 19 states for DHS logistical support preceded Trump's comments within the last 48 hours about replicating enforcement efforts seen in Washington, D.C. and other parts of the country. But let's be clear, it can be a dual it can be a dual purpose sort of thing, right? Like, yeah, they're going to be supporting ICE, but you so anyway, um, this isn't new, nor is it tied to the president's efforts to address violent crime in D.C. DOD announced last month that National Guard troops would assist DHS with clerical support and other logistical tasks for processing illegal aliens at ICE facilities, a White House official said. It is separate from the legal interagency crime crackdown. Bottom line, the National Guard mobilizing to assist ICE processing with clerical and logistical tasks in several states is not the same as the president's actions to stop crime in DC, the official added. National Guard forces are carrying out presence patrols across Washington, D.C., including at metro stations, Union Station, the National Mall, and alongside U.S. Park Police. Officials have also linked the D.C. operation to beautification efforts ahead of next year's 250th Independence Day celebration. Trump has hinted that the Guard may remain in the city for an extended period and that the mission could expand to other parts of the country. So, yeah. And so the original article sources National Guard rollout 19 states, not linked to Trump's crime crackdown, White House says. For, if you guys want to look that up, go ahead and, do so. Now, I want to get to the actual 19 states because I'm curious, and I know some of you are, the two people watching. So I'm just going to redress this question to the search engine as a see if it goes through. Let me check the comments. And I'm constantly at Memphis is off the chain. Ninjas tried to rob my brother last year. Damn, man. I hope he was okay. Look, as I've said, a couple of times, I don't even live in Baltimore City. I live in the suburbs, and it's still bad out here. Like I said, just 2 weeks ago, there was a shoot. People were shooting out here because my next door neighbor was getting carjacked. Like we have we have these little YNs every night around this community. They walk around late at night trying to get into people's cars to steal stuff. And so it just so happened that they opened up his car while he was actually sitting in his car with his girlfriend watching a video. And so when the guy opened it up, he saw him and he got into a fight with him, and they ended up wrestling on the street. And it was two of them that jumped him, and his friend, luckily his friend came by, pulled out a gun and shot it twice in the air, and they ran off into a truck and sped off. But hearing two gunshots right in front of my house is loud. It's like it was like 1:30 in the morning, woke me up, and as soon as I heard it, I got to the floor. Like I wasn't asleep. I guess I was like half asleep. Like like when you just veg out in front of the TV. And so when I heard that, I instantly got up and then got on the floor. So I'm like, all right, let me make sure there's no more gunshots, because I could crouch where I got on the floor. It was like behind like my bed. So I thought that was safe enough. Now, if I heard shots being licked off, I would have jumped into the bathroom and told everyone else to get out, do the same. But it's unsafe here, just in the suburbs, and we live um at least at least driving distance like driving distance. We live at least like 25 minutes away from the city. Hey Agatha, she said, what article are you reading from? Sorry. So it was um 1700 Fox News, 1700 National Guard troops to deploy 19 states for immigration. That's the name of the title. Um, and I'm right now. I'm actually trying to find the actual 19 states. But to be sure, even though they're saying it's for immigration purposes that he's gonna send these troops to 19 states, is is obvious. There is the obvious like implication that is for both immigration and cracking down on crime. It's obvious it's a dual purpose mission. See, that's why I like Bing. It's like I think because of Google has implemented the Google Gemini. It works a little better. So I'm trying to find the actual 19 states. Okay, I found them. So this is a different article. This is from the Independent. If people want to know that. I'm not going to read this article because it's just going to regurgitate what I just read earlier. But it says the deployments will take place across the following states: Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, Ohio, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, Wyoming. Texas is reportedly slated to have the largest deployment. So it sounds like these are states that are actually. This sounds like these are the states that actually want them to be there, because you notice these aren't blue states. None of these. None of these that I've just read off are blue states. Virginia at best is purple. Um, Nevada purple, but yeah, none of these are like dyed in a wool blue state. So it sounds like they want him to be there, the National Guard to be there. But it's obvious like it's both for immigration and an anti-crime crackdown. It's not just for immigration logistical support. I don't think anyone would take. I don't think anyone would think that's all they're there to do. As given that this has been talked about in the same breath as the crime crackdowns. Could be wrong, but yeah. Uh, Carlin says red states with deep blue cities. Yeah. Well, so the funny thing is, and Bill Maher has remarked on this before too. When you go down to the South and parts of the Midwest, these may be red states, but the funny thing is normally the um the cities within these red states are pretty blue because what happens is it's not what happens is it's not really a north versus south. It's more of an urban versus rural lifestyle. Rural living tends to be by folks who are more traditional, more conservative, ergo people who are more likely to vote Republican, and, or for conservative politicians generally. Urban folks tend to be more liberal and progressive, and therefore will tend to vote more Democrat or folks who lean left. So, regardless, so that's the real cultural cultural division in the country, as Bill Maher talked about many years ago. Is that it's not, we've always seen as a simple oversimplified the north versus the south. Like northern states are more blue and liberal and so forth, and the south is more conservative and blah blah blah. And that's not really the case. What it is that more people who live in urban areas tend to be more liberal and left leaning. People in rural parts of the country tend to be more traditional and conservative. So that's what, and like I said, that can go for the north, the south, the Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, or the Gulf Coast, like all of it. Because if you look, even if you go somewhere as blue as New York, I can tell you right now, outside of the cities, there's a lot of very rural conservative type folks in parts of New York State. If you go upstate, like outside of like places like Buffalo may be a little bit more urban and liberal, but outside of Buffalo, those you would think you're in like Virginia. Seriously. Or Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is considered a blue state, but most of Pennsylvania is very white and very conservative. Outside of places, outside of the obvious places like Philadelphia and Harrisburg and Pittsburgh, um, it's pretty conservative. Like I lived in Philly for a little bit, and yeah, it's it's your typical urban blight, mostly black and ghetto, but you have all these black politicians running the city, and but once you step out of Philly, once you step out of Harrisburg, or maybe even Pittsburgh, which even Pittsburgh isn't well, it's liberal compared to other parts of Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania might as well be in the South. If you're not living in Philly or Harrisburg, something like that, you would think you're living in the South in Pennsylvania. Seriously. O'Connor says, and most black people live in blue cities. Yep. Yep. Definitely true. But yeah, so let me. So that's what it is for the people who didn't catch that. I guess I can read off the cities again. But and again, this comes from the Independent. The name of this article is Trump mobilizing up to 1,700 National Guard troops in 19 states to widen crime and immigration crackdown. And that would be Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, Ohio, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and Wyoming, which means these are probably the states, again, that granted him permission to send in the National Guard because most of these blue states don't want them. Mind you, when he can mobilize the National Guard into a state, he doesn't have to use that state's National Guard. And this is why what Wes Moore says is a red herring when he says, as the commander in chief of the Maryland National Guard, I won't authorize them to be deployed into Baltimore. It's like, well, you don't have to do so. Number one, there's the supremacy clause, so the federal always trumps the state. Two, he doesn't have to mobilize the Maryland National Guard. He can just get permission from a governor of another state to utilize their National Guard to send them into Baltimore. They don't have to be from Maryland. They could be from Arizona. Carlton says, yeah, black folks support ICE, but don't support the police. They both have ICE in their name. That was funny because before I read the whole comment, I was actually about to make a joke about that, but you already like beat me to the punch. So you have the supremacy clause. Yeah, and that's what happened in California a few years ago. Was it? Wait, was it? When was that? When the stuff was going down in California? I think this was during Trump's first administration. Was it? Yeah, I think this was during Trump's first administration. Um, and the governor at that time wasn't going to authorize him to send in the National Guard. He was like, cool. He just called in the National Guard from other states. It was like Arizona, New Mexico, or wherever, and sent them in because the state can't stop the National Guard from coming there because they are federal troops. Again, federal Trump state. The only way they can stop them is through going through the courts, going through the federal court, and the federal court says, no, you can't deploy them. So, but the only thing the state can do is say, well, we won't authorize our National Guard for these purposes. Like, okay, I remember what it was when he, so it was when Trump was wanted to authorize. No, no, no. This wasn't Trump. I'm completely forgetting, guys. You guys got fact check me. This wasn't Trump. This was Biden, I believe. I think this was Biden. Somebody fact check me and tell me whether this was Biden or Trump. He wanted to send the National Guard in for the purposes of border patrol. California said they weren't going to allow the National Guard to be mobilized, so the president just utilized the National Guard from other states to send in for the purposes of assisting border patrol and ICE at the time. And I think that was actually Biden, not Trump. I can't remember. I can't recall correctly. But if somebody wants to fact check me on that, um, but yeah, man. Like I've said a few times, and like I told my friend, um, if they send a National Guard to Baltimore, I'm gonna be down at the harbor the next day having fun because I know it'll be safe down there for once. I can go down to Fells Point and hit and like go hit the bars, even although I don't drink, but I can go down there and just hang out and get good food because a lot of those bars serve pretty tasty food. And usually when I do actually go to happy hour with a friend, I usually go and just eat food like wings or tacos or whatever they have on the because they usually have a happy hour menu. So I usually order off the happy hour menu because one is cheaper and two is made specifically. That means that they'll be able to serve their food pretty quickly because that's what they have on the menu for that time of the day. So, mm-mm-mm. But any case, um, what curious what anyone else thinks. It's kind of late, so I'm gonna go soon. I thought I would probably get a whole bunch of detractors, because at one point it was like 25 people in the in the chat room, so I was assuming people were gonna be like, no, so but then some people who did comment made irrelevant comments, so I just ignored them. Crystal didn't though. She stuck. She knew the game plan. Shout out to her. Um, what else? Just uh, skimming through the chat room. And of course, there was some autistic twit in here. um, but yeah, Carlton says black folks need to understand that if you can't govern yourself, then someone else will. What Trump is doing with the troopers needed in these cities, right? Like, so being that these cities are predominantly black, has a predominantly black general population, meaning at least over 50% at least. But but sometimes these cities can be up to like 80 or 90% black, right? But given that many of those cities are have a majority black population, you're saying that they shouldn't be safe just because they want people to be on code with not sending in um, federal law enforcement to do what they can't do or what they won't do, and that if they do, then it's racist. Meanwhile, it is the citizens that suffer the incompetence of their leaders. Now, I will say this, and this might be mean, but some of these citizens do deserve it because they keep voting in the same idiots because they're black and they're Democrat. And it's like Lyndon Johnson prophetic claim held true when he said back, you know, in the late 60s, I'm gonna have these N words voting Democrat for the next 50 years, which is exactly what happened because too many black people who I know in my personal life, as well as the people I've talked to here online, think that part of being black is voting Democrat. I'm like, what kind of? I was like, you guys don't see that brainwashing that you're less black or even worse, you're anti-black if you choose not to vote Democrat. Just because someone looks like you does not mean you should vote for them. I'm going to say that again. Just because someone looks like you does not mean that you should vote for them. Just because someone looks like you does not mean you should vote for them. That doesn't mean that they have your interest at heart. Doesn't mean that they even care that you look like them, other than for your vote, Harris. Um, and they want you to be on code with being anti-Republican and anti-federal, because they don't want to be held to account for mismanaging the cities that they are tasked with running. I find that troubling. And Carter says, I guess my comment about my Marine vet coworker didn't post Streamlabs probably blocked it. Oh yeah, because I didn't even see it. Because usually sometimes if something some things will post and it'll be up to me to click to see whether it goes through. Because there was the one where the lady told me to shut up, so that did post, but I had to click it for it to be seen by other people, which I just clicked it so that I could see it. Carter says facts. People fell for the Obama look like us trap. Right. And that's exactly what happened in Maryland. People fell for this Timu Barack Obama. Because that's exactly what Governor Westmore, he's just a Timu Barack Obama. You know, he's not a half African, half white person. Instead, he's some half Caribbean, he's a Caribbean guy. His father, I guess, was actually Black American. And of course, he quickly denounced his black father by saying he abandoned us. No, 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 no. Uh, I'm sorry, no. I think he said that his father was uh, unalived when he was a child, and so then he and his mother were forced to to live in the Bronx. Meanwhile, he never lived in Baltimore, but he claims he's a Baltimore native because he spent 4 years at Johns Hopkins University. Mind you, unlike many college graduates, he didn't live in a city after he graduated. He went back to New York. So I don't know where in that he claims he's a Baltimore native. That's like, you know, me living my whole life here in Maryland or in the DC suburbs, and then say I attend the University of Chicago for 4 years. So then I then claim I'm a Chicago native, even though right after I graduate Chicago, I come right on back to Maryland. That's Fugazi. And I'm not going to even talk about his stolen valor, but yeah, he Westmore is a Timu Barack Obama, and it was obvious. Like if people were in Maryland, if they saw his campaigning, he was obviously trying to be like Obama. He even had Obama come stump for him during his campaign. So Carlos says, yeah, they want us to be on code with being pro crime too. Oh, I know, dude. I don't know if you saw the video where I was actually talking about a old college friend of mine sitting there trying to say that I'm off. He was basically saying that I'm being a sellout and anti-black because I'm I'm not on code with accepting crime and degeneracy. He's basically saying he was saying a couple of things. One, he was saying I was a sellout. Two, he was saying that I was trying to pander to white people to show them I'm one of the good ones. Again, this is on my personal Facebook page. I don't even have very many white friends on my Facebook list, except for a few, and none of them, and there's only one of them who ever comments on any of my stuff. But who like if I'm posting to my account and it's only and the posts are only for friends, it's not for the public. It's not like I'm posting on a professional page on Facebook where everyone can see it. I'm only posting to friends, and let's say 98% of my well no 90 I'll say 80% of my friends are black. The others are mostly Asian and live overseas, so they don't even have an opinion on you know race issues here in America. Um, then it's like five, six white friends who aren't even active except for one, and only one of them who I chat with on Facebook. How am I pandering to white people? And then saying, and then making the claim that not just the good parts, there's not just the good things in the black community, but it's even the bad things that are part of the everyday black experience. I was like, so you're just wrapping up degeneracy in the black community as part of the everyday black experience. With it's like you're acknowledging that that's the problem. That shouldn't be degeneracy and self destructive behavior shouldn't be part of the everyday black experience. And then we got to sit there and pretend that the black community is not uniquely dysfunctional amongst all the other different groups within the United States. It's like then you don't want. It's like you acknowledge degeneracy as part of the everyday black experience, which it shouldn't be, while at the same time saying that there's nothing uniquely bad about the black community compared to these other um, communities within the country. That's crazy. Cardin says, "Have you noticed that black people will call Terry Crews a coon, but Big Meech will be called a legend? People don't call street guys coons." Right. Exactly. You're exactly right. It's just like how Chris Rock said a long time ago in his stand-up special. Like, you know, a guy will come back from college like, "Hey man, I just finished with my masters. So what? So what? You think you my master now? But guess what?" He said, "But let me ask you something. But let me ask you something. But let me ask you something. But let me ask you something. Can you kick my can you kick my ass? That's what I want to know. Can you kick my ass?" He said, "Meanwhile, you know, Pookie will come out of prison and they're gonna throw him a huge party. Like, and that's part of the problem in the black community. Like you'll celebrate, you you glorify criminality, and you you put down personal ambition and academic interest. If you have academic inclinations, you're trying to be white, or you know you're 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 corny, you're a sellout, you're weak, you're anti-black. You must have a little D, like any and everything will let you be trapping, trap. Like, oh, you're the guy, you're that dude. Carson says facts. Pookie gets a party and a hood day named after him. Right. Like they'll celebrate him coming out of jail. The guy coming from college, like, oh, you think you better than us? Yes, yes, he is. And it's time to acknowledge that there is a black elite, that there is a hierarchy, that there is a social hierarchy. Black people are the black community is the only community that doesn't accept a social hierarchy. They want us to claim that the black physicist and the black drug dealer are on the same tier. No, they're not. Neil deGrasse Tyson and Lil Ray Ray, um, being a corner boy, are not on the same level, and they shouldn't be given the same respect. Kevin Samuels argued this years ago before he passed away, that the black community needs to recognize a social hierarchy just like every other community does. And he said, in mainstream white America, they don't treat they don't treat um, Jim Bob over in his over in the trailer park with the same esteem that they treat uh, John, who's a Wall Street broker. No, nor do Indians, nor do Asians. The only other groups that tend to disregard the social hierarchy aside from black people, maybe like um, Latino, and it's because they have a strong working class culture. So for them, they don't even recognize the Latinos who want to be more erudite. And of course, I don't want to generalize because there's different groups within the Latino community. So obviously, that's not going to hold true for everyone. I'm speaking mainly for Mexican and Chicano communities, but that's not the case when it comes to other Latino communities like Cubans and stuff like that, or people who are actually from Spain, who I guess would be considered Latino or Hispanic. But within Latino Hispanic culture, um, there's some of that same degeneracy where because they glorify working class culture, they don't really recognize people who want to be more erudite. And I've seen this firsthand with some friends where like part of their working class culture is they believe you should have kids young. Like I literally had a friend who I knew in high school, and we weren't even that close, but we were cool. I saw him like I saw him like 4 years later after high school. I'm like 21. He was like, yo, what's up? He said, you got any kids yet? I say, nah, man, because he was still with his same girlfriend then when I knew him. Excuse me, when I known them when they were in the 10th grade. I was in the 12th grade. They were in the 10th grade. So he's already 2 years younger than me, mind you. So he's not even 21 himself, unless he got he could have been he could have been like I don't know. He could have been 17 in the 10th grade. I don't know, but in any case, um, even if he were my age, it was still too young to be saying, man, you should be already having kids by now. He said, you're gonna be old. I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. I'm like, dude, I'm 21. He's acting like he act like I was said I was 41. No, really, the way he looked at me was like I was 51. Like, dude, you're gonna be old. I'm like, I'm 21. He's talking about, dude, you need to be having kids by now. You're gonna get old. I'm like, really? So yeah, that comes from that sort of working class sort of cultural values. They have kids at a young age, then they buckle down and take these little blue collar jobs. And no, I have more ambition than that. Sorry. On top of that, you might have kids with someone at that age that you completely regret having them with at that time. Now, luckily, he's with someone whom he was still with. That's fine, but that's not the case for most people. Usually, you tend to outgrow people at that age because as a teenager, you haven't really found yourself, and your personality isn't. Your personality hasn't solidified at that age. He said, "Yeah, a lot of them have kids young." Oh, I know. Then the girls become fat afterwards, but that's a whole different. That's a whole different discussion. But trying to steer this back to the original topic. So, like I said, I would welcome National Guard coming to Baltimore. Like I said, I would be downtown the next day at the Inner Harbor, at Fells Point. Not so much Canton because I don't really care about Canton, but I would definitely be like at the Inner Harbor and Fells Point the next day. Shoot, if they were even in like bad areas like Penn North, I would go. Penn North is an open drug market. So is it downtown at the what is the market? The I mean the can't remember. But yeah, like I will walk downtown and I will be offered tons of drugs, and most of them I've never even heard of them before. Hey man, you want some turbo? You want some blah blah blah? I'm like, what is he talking about? Do I want what? And I just like, nah, I'm good, man. And like I had to use Urban Dictionary to look up the drugs I was being offered because I didn't know what they were talking about. And it's like an open drug market. Like they're not doing this like secretly. Like they're openly out there, right there in front of this food market, just peddling drugs. Carter says, I wonder if Trump will use the future incarcerated lions to replace the migrant workforce. Uh, I don't think so. What I think is happening, um, and Dennis Sperling has made this argument as well that elite, cheap immigration labor is becoming replaceable because of increased automation. I mean, look at anywhere you go to now dealing with um, food and retail service. A lot of stuff's being automated. You can go to like Shoppers Food Warehouse, and it's all self checkout, right? You can go to McDonald's and you can order your food through the automated menu, and the only time you interact with an actual person is when they put your food on the counter for you to get. And the funny thing is, a lot of people love the automated checkout at McDonald's because they get your orders more correct than people do. It's been shown to have less errors. Like if I say Big Mac without cheese, I'm never worried when I order it on, either online or through the automatic the automated teller, that they get that wrong, or that I get something I didn't ask for, which I don't mind that. But um, the only problem I still see is because people still serve the food. I don't get all I don't get all 20 of my McNuggets. I like 20 McNuggets. I eat all 20 of my McNuggets, and I hate when people ask me for one of my McNuggets. I used to hate that in college, or one of my friends. I hated buying. I would, like, when he and I used to go out, and he might watch this, but we used to go to McDonald's, and I stopped ordering anything that was like served in portions, just so that he wouldn't ask me for my food. Like, come on, man. Like, if I order fries, I don't want you taking some of it like a dad tax. Like, no. And if he paid for it, that's differently. Like, if he's treating, that's fine. But if I'm buying with my own money, I don't want you taking. I know I don't want to give you a few nuggets. I don't want to give you some fries. Why do you need some of my food? Why don't you just order more of your own? I hate that when people do that. That annoys the shit out of me. Um, so what I would do, I would just order a sandwich or two sandwiches because I would be hungry. So I wouldn't order fries. I wouldn't order McNuggets. I would just order two or three sandwiches and a drink. That way I didn't have to share it with him. But anyway, that's an aside. Getting back to the point is that the automated, the automatic menu when you go to McDonald's now has less errors. Or even when you go through the drive-through, what happens now is a lot of fast food drive-throughs, the people that are actually taking your order aren't aren't in the aren't in the restaurant. They're actually contracting with a call center. They actually now have call centers that actually take people's orders through drive-through, and they're actually more accurate than the people there in the store. I can't tell you how many times it's frustrating talking to someone um, in the store who's doing the drive-through. Yeah, it McDonald. What you want? Yeah, can I get a Big Mac without cheese, medium fries, and a vanilla shake, large? You want a what? Large vanilla shake. You want a vanilla shake? Yeah, I want a vanilla shake. What kind of sandwich? You want Big Mac? Yes. Can I have it without cheese? With or without cheese? Without cheese. Without? Yes, without cheese. Okay. And did you want to make that a meal? Yeah, I just said medium fries. I want to make that a meal. Well, the shake doesn't come with that. I know I'm replacing the drink, the soft drink with the shake. I'll just pay extra for the shake. Oh, okay. Anything else? No, that's it. All right, so that's a Big Mac with cheese, medium fries, and a vanilla shake. No, I said without cheese. Sorry. This is what happens when you you get the local idiot doing the drive through as opposed to it being done through a call center. So a lot of people like the fact that it's done. These drive throughs are now done through call centers. Carson says you got a point about the automation. Yeah, it's just like towards the end of slavery, they were starting to become replaceable too because of the invention of the cotton gin. I don't think people remember that from their American history class, but towards the end of slavery, the cotton gin had already been invented and it was starting to replace manual manual labor on the fields because it could be done quicker and you don't have to feed and house a machine. So the same thing going. Joseph, can I have one of your nuggets? No, sir. You got to get your own. Take you to McDowell's. But they don't have the Big Mac. They got the Big Mick. I swear I would open a McDonald's if I had the money. I would purposely buy a McDonald's franchise and make it look like McDonald's. Or I would just start an actual McDonald's and just pay whatever copyright I have to do to the Hollywood studio to use the rights to that. Carter says, I remember I was in the airport at the cafe and a robot made my coffee. Oh, that's dope. Now you'll see a lot of that in Japan. Like in Japan, they even have like robot servers like come and bring your food to you. Like I didn't, unfortunately, I didn't go to any restaurants that did that. I went to like a traditional ramen noodle restaurant, which was dope because I got being able to eat like actual ramen noodle in in Japan made me feel like I was Naruto. But definitely want to do more when I go back. I want to go and eat because Tokyo has Tokyo has the best um, restaurants in the world. Like I think Tokyo has the most 5-star Michelin rated restaurants in the world. If I'm up to date, I think Tokyo has more 5-star uh, 5-star rated Michelin restaurants in the world than any other city. Even Anthony Bourdain used to sing the praises of Tokyo as well. He said Tokyo has the best food in the world. Like, just literally, you can get any food that you want in there, and it's true. Like, you can go to Tokyo and you can get Jamaican food, right? You like, so it's like you can live in Tokyo and you're not missing anything. Like, if you like I said, if you have a if you have a peculiar culinary taste, you can find it in Tokyo. Say like you're vegan, you can find vegan restaurants in Tokyo. You like Caribbean food, you can find Caribbean food in Tokyo, believe it or not. And if you don't believe me, you can actually go to the YouTube channel Black Experience in Japan. There's actually a black guy who's the content creator for that channel, and he's actually Jamaican. He's a Jamaican from Canada. He lives there with his black wife. So people thinking he just went there for a Japanese woman. Now, personally, I would have went there for a Japanese woman, but he didn't. He lives there with his family. He travels all across Japan, and he found a few like Caribbean restaurants. Like I said, you can find anything in Tokyo. So shout out to Japan. Food, like I said, more they have more Michelin 5-star rated restaurants in Tokyo than anywhere else in the world, and it's the largest city in the world as well. So it's definitely worth. Now Tokyo is more expensive than other parts in Asia, though. I'll tell you, to, Tokyo and Singapore are probably the most expensive cities to live in East Asia. But food is relatively affordable in Japan, though. Fortunately, like you can just go to a convenience store, whether you're talking about 7-Eleven or I forgot the Japanese rival to 7-Eleven. All sorts of banging food, and they've been You know, the 7-Eleven is now owned by a Japanese corporation. It was originally 7-Eleven originally started in Texas, and then the Japanese corporation that owned 7-Eleven franchises in Japan bought out the entire uh, corporation. So now it's a Japanese corporation that owns 7-Eleven. And they were saying, I believe, like last year or late 2023, that they were going to start testing out, rolling out some of their Japanese foods in American 7-Eleven markets to see how it does. So I haven't seen that yet, but I haven't been at 7-Eleven in a year though. Anyway, Just as yeah, everything I tried in Tokyo was the best I ever had. Yeah, man. I miss it so much. I gotta go back. I probably wouldn't want to leave. Stay my whole just this time stay a full 30 days. The women are better too, but anyway. Joe says Japan has strict food laws. They're not allowed to put all that crap in their food. 7-Eleven is awesome in Japan. Yep, definitely. Yeah, most other countries outside of America doesn't allow all the chemical additives that we allow here because of the because of the lobbyists for these companies that allow them to dump poison into our food. So this is why the Make America Healthy Again movement under Robert Kennedy is a good thing. I know a lot of people see him as a quack, and I'll be honest, when it comes to science, he is a quack, but he's not the one doing the research on these things. Yes, we want the food we give to our kids to not have glow in the dark chemicals in it. Like we don't we don't need this, you know, breakfast cereal to be colorful at the cost of these food colorings to be, you know, poisonous, cancerous items. Like you can literally go to like Canada or UK and find the same food products, and you read the ingredients, and the ingredients don't read the same as stuff in America. First of all, you oftentimes the ingredients will make sense. It won't be chemical names. Like there are actual chemists to say that even they have difficulty understanding the ingredients in some of American foods because because these companies intentionally make it difficult to understand what these ingredients are so that people can't look them up and see whether they're toxic or not. So yeah, so I welcome the Make America Healthy Again if it's going to, you know, get rid of poison that these the FDA has allowed people to put into our food because of these powerful food lobbyists. This is why there's corn sugar and everything because of the powerful lobby for the for the um for the corn industry. Carlin says the bad food is one of the reasons why these ninjas acting up across America. Yeah, they've brought that up too. That particularly in the past, there was a lot of lead poisoning in these inner cities for like early generations, like the baby boomer generation, the um the Generation X, and even probably some of the older millennials. Like they lived in the era where there would have been, you know, significant amount of lead poisoning where they lived in these places. So yeah, there's definitely a health and nutritional component um, to factor into crime. That's like lead poisoning, definitely. Like the lead poisoning is definitely makes people stupid and more aggressive. So, but that still doesn't give people an excuse. Joseph, that's what's wrong with me. No, but I mean, yeah. But to be serious, yeah, it still doesn't give people excuse to wild out. Like you still have to be responsible for your own behavior, even yeah, e- even if you've been put in a situation that made you less, you know, less rational. I put it that way. So, like I said, I welcome National Guard coming into Baltimore, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to get the hell out of Dodge and get out of the country so I can live in a more safe and secure environment. So, Carlson said he knows a lot of violent crime occurs at fast food restaurants. Yeah, and in particular restaurants, Popeyes. Who do you always see at Popeyes? Fat black women sitting there. Uh I'm gonna get my food. Just we'll just go behind the counter and start taking chicken and shit and punching people. There's always some little fat black chick at Popeyes popping off. Love that chicken at Popeyes. Let me stop. All right, let me stop. Yeah. I mean, just because the spokesperson for Popeyes is a big black woman doesn't mean the big black women have to come there acting a fool all the damn time. It's either McDonald's or Popeye. Just McDonald's especially attracts a lot of riffraff because this is usually what all these dummies can afford. Um, or at least back in the day, McDonald's is expensive now. Like 20 years ago, it was still the clutch. It was still like a clutch place to go for cheap food. It's not even a clutch place anymore. That's why they brought back the $5 menu with McDonald's, and then every other restaurant copied them. Just like they brought back the snack wrap, and then everyone else um, well, McDonald's brought back the snack wrap because all these other fast food places like, all right, well, McDonald's won't do it, we'll do it. Burger King brought out a snack wrap. Wendy's did it. Taco Bell did. Taco Bell has a snack wrap, which is basically just a fried chicken taco, but whatever. Um, but yeah, they all did that. So McDonald's brought theirs. But yeah, there's always a bunch of hood rats circling McDonald's and Popeyes and stuff. And because ninjas always want to be somewhere where there's some fried chicken, and McDonald's is just cheap food. Joseph's dude says we try not to eat fast food, but then can't justify paying that much. Yeah, it's like with the cost of McDonald's now, you might as well go to like Five Guys or Shake Shack or Chipotle. Like, why would you spend the same amount of money for lesser quality food? It doesn't make sense. Like, the funny thing is, I didn't even rock with McDonald's for a long time, until I went overseas because overseas, fast food is higher quality. Plus, because these are American fast food chains, over there they're considered more prestigious to the locals, getting food from an American um, food food restaurant chain than from their own local stuff. Like particularly like say with the Philippines, because the main fast food chain there is Jollibee's. That meant that when these American fast food chains came there and had to compete with Jollibee's, they had to be better than Jollibee's. That's why McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King are so much better in the Philippines because they got to compete with the main with with the main guy, which is Jollibee's, which is everywhere in the Philippines. You can go to a remote island, you probably will find a Jollibee's. Well, not remote, but you get what I'm saying. Like some of those, islands with smaller populations, you'll still probably find a Jollibee's somewhere on that island. But it was because I started going overseas and eating McDonald's that I started getting into it again. Because I really stopped eating McDonald's after college. Because even my professors like you shouldn't eat that food, which is funny because like he had a bunch of leftover pizza because we had a little thing in class and he had all this leftover pizza. He was like, "Hey, you want this food? I need to get rid of it." I was starving, so I was like, "Yeah, I'll take it." I was like, I got some McDonald's though. He's like, "You shouldn't eat all that." This is a philosophy professor. He's like, "Yeah, you shouldn't eat McDonald's. That stuff's not good for you." I was like, "Yeah, I know." But yeah, I took that food. I took that pizza, smashed it. It was like yeah, after college, between taking a nutrition class and having a professor say you shouldn't eat McDonald's, I was like, yeah, I shouldn't. Plus, like I said at the time, McDonald's had a low reputation. This was like just after the Super Size Me movie came out, and that gave like McDonald's a real bad reputation. So it was because of the high quality nature of McDonald's overseas that brought me back to eating McDonald's here in America. Joe says, yeah, we really don't have Cracker Barrel where I'm at, but do you have any thoughts on that? Yeah, someone was asking about that the other day. I've been to Cracker Barrel several times. I usually go to it. I think like in like Virginia. I think like it was like in Virginia and New Jersey. I went to it. Um, uh, I don't have any strong opinions on it because both. The funny thing is sides of both sides of the political aisle hate the change to the logo. To me, it's not a big deal. Logos change. I've actually posted on my personal Facebook account the fact it was making fun of it was showing the Cracker Barrel logo going to heaven, and up there it was like Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben from Uncle Ben's Rice. Uh, what was the other black one? Yeah, yeah, it was Uncle Ben's Rice, Aunt Jemima from the the syrup. Uh, it was another black person, I think, from the cream of wheat guy. It was the cream of wheat guy, and then it was the Native American woman from Land O'Lakes. And they were all in heaven, and the Cracker Barrel logo came there, and it was like, "Welcome, Cracker." I just busted out laughing. I was like, okay, this is funny, but I don't I don't get all the antipathy. Like it doesn't change the food. Like I get what I think is people just dislike the CEO. But I get people dislike the CEO of Cracker Barrel, but it doesn't change the food a bit. Like the food is good and it's affordable, but that doesn't change. Like it's just the Cracker Barrel without the cracker leaning on the barrel. I guess I'm not calling anyone crackers, but that's this is funny. And I was telling people if you haven't seen it, go to the YouTube channel of Ace Vane. He's also on Instagram and on Facebook if you guys are on Facebook and Instagram. Ace Vane, ACEVANE. He's a black comedian and rapper. He does animated skits where he takes like stuff from like usually like 70s and 80s, like anything old like Fred Flintstone and Super Friends and stuff like that. And he does these funny voiceovers. But this he did a voiceover for the Cracker Barrel logo guy. And he's like, "Hey, there's the Cracker Barrel guy here. Trust me, it's worth your 2 minutes of time just to see how funny it is." But like I said, like I said the last time about a Cracker Barrel is good and it's affordable, but it's nothing to write home about. It's like if I never had been to a Cracker Barrel, I wouldn't felt I missed out on something. It would be like saying, I never been to Denny's or I never been to um what was that other like diner that you will see on the freeway? With the baby in the overalls, the checkered overalls and the bow tie. What was that called? But it didn't matter to me. All the conservatives and Republicans were like, this is just woke. And then it was funny because then the Democrats, the actual Democratic National Committee posted on Twitter, they was like, nah, we think the change to the logo sucks too, guys. So everyone was in agreement that they they hated the logo change. Like I said, the Republicans were saying it was woke, and the Democrats was like, nah, we think it sucks too. So there you go. I don't have any strong thoughts on it. As long as they don't change the food, it doesn't even matter to me. But like I said, I haven't been to a Cracker Barrel in four 4 years, 5 years, something like that. So it's been at least half. It's been about half a decade since I've been here. So yeah. So yeah, Moonlit Fern was saying, yeah, Cracker Barrel's good. Not my fave, but reminds me of the South. The buttermilk biscuits are fire, but I prefer others over theirs. You're making me hungry, man. It's already bad enough that my sister-in-law made some peri peri chicken because my mother-in-law birthday is today, and I didn't know. I didn't know my little sister in law could cook like that. Like my wife posted the picture of the chicken. I should have saved it. No, I don't want to make y'all hungry, but I posted it about on my YouTube wall. It looked like this looks. It looked good. I'm like, tell. I was like, I told Mrs. Contrarian, I was like, tell your sister when I get back, she gotta make. Can she make me some? She was like, okay. I'm sure she would. I'm like, dang, I didn't know she could cook like that. Okay. Carlin says, yeah, the man on the Cracker Barrel logo is an American icon. Really? But because I don't know, for some reason I think like Cracker Barrel hasn't been around that long. Has it been around that long? Like I'm thinking like Cracker Barrel just appeared like 20 years ago. Is how old is Cracker Barrel? Is it like is this like an old diner? Like for some reason I see Cracker Barrel as something that's only been around for 20 years, but I'm guessing this is really an old restaurant. But to me, it's like I know it's not. It seems to me it's not old, but it's just trying to like kit. It was. I thought it was more like kitschy. Like they tried to make it look like it was something from like the like the 50s or 40s. Because when you go in there, the whole motif inside the restaurant is supposed to make you think like you're somewhere in like a some sort of shack from the 50s. Like all the stuff, but every all that stuff in there is like you can buy a lot of this stuff in they sell like a lot of little items, around the checkout area, um, that you can you can take home with you, like all sorts of like games and collectibles and stuff. Joe said, "Yeah, only heard bits and pieces on the Cracker Barrel thing. Wasn't sure if it was a woke thing or something like that." Well, I think the reason people think it was woke was because of the CEO is a middle aged white woman, and let's be honest, when you think of let's be honest, guys. Tell me if I'm wrong here. When you think of the typical like feminist liberal, what do you think of? Amon says it does have that feel, but like most places I eat and ignore people or grab Avid. That's Thailand's DoorDash, Joe. Mm. Yeah, grab. Yeah, the Grab app. Grab. So Grab is like a common. Grab is like if you combine Uber, because actually it started from Uber. Like it was separate from Uber, and then it bought out Uber in Southeast Asia. But in doing so, Uber said they would keep some of their members of the board as part of the well as part of their the executive members in Grab. So it's still connected to Uber, but it's a separate thing. But so Grab is like uh if you took Uber, Cash App, and DoorDash and combined them all in one, that would be the Grab app. And WeChat is even more than like, and then in China, when it comes to WeChat, it does even more. But that's a whole different discussion with WeChat. Moon says it's older than 55 years. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was that old. Crown says it's been around since 1969. Was founded in Tennessee. Okay, so its old motif is actually like comes from its southern origins. Cause yeah, it has that sort of kitschy feeling where you're supposed to think like you're in the South, but not just in not like not like the it's not like deep South. It's more like the Appalachian South. Like that's sort of like the feel. So that's where it's actually from. It is actually from the Appalachian area because that's sort of like the feeling that it gives you when you walk in. It's supposed to give you that sort of like Appalachian sort of motif. Carlos says middle-aged white women. I'm I, I'm joking, but let's be honest. Like that is what most people think when they think of like a of some little liberal feminist. They think of a middle-aged white woman. That's typically that is typically who you think of when it comes to like some you know liberal white feminist. Like it's a white middle-aged woman. Melissa didn't know it was Tennessee. I thought it was a South Carolina restaurant. Joseph, what do you think about they're moving the face of Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, etc. from packaging? So, uh, I'm. It's sort of the same to me. I'm indifferent to it. At the time, I welcomed it because the portrayal of Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, and the cream of wheat guy were were images that came out of, you know, the early 20th century where black people often were employed as domestic servants or in some sort of servile role where they'd be called auntie and uncle by younger white people, usually in deference to them, to be honest. But it felt very stereotypical, and even the images were very stereotypical looking of how you look at Aunt Jemima. Like the image of Aunt Jemima looks like the woman that owns um, Tom from Tom and Jerry. Even though they never show her face, she's dressed the exact same way, with the bandana around her head, the that the obvious housekeeper look. Uncle Ben looks like one of those black guys that used to work on the train, in the early 20th century. Cream of Wheat guy, kind of similar. Like I, at the time I welcomed the change because I thought it was like I thought they were very stereotypical portrayals of these people. But looking at it now, and I really don't care. Like if they brought them back, I wouldn't be a bit upset. I'd be like, it's tradition. But they removed them for like over 20 years now, so younger people probably never grew up with those images of those food of that food iconography. Same with the Land O'Lakes woman. I didn't even know she was removed, honestly. Melissa says, yeah, Grab app branched out here heavily. They deliver groceries, but I'm at the store. LOL, they started hiring women drivers on the fast motorbikes. Yeah, because when I took Uber and Grab, both in the Philippines and Thailand, I never got a female driver. It was always guys. Some of these dudes in Thailand would be sweaty, so it'd be like kind of dank in their cars. I had one guy in the Philippines. I'm with my wife and my mom. My mom came over there to hang out with us to meet my wife and her family. And we're in a Uber, or it might have been Grab it might have already switched over to Grab at the time. I think, yeah, I think it already switched over to Grab. And this dude was wilding, like he was he had to been either drunk or high because like he was steering. Um, he took his hands off the steering wheel and just drove. It was doing other like, and both my wife and my mom were looking like, "What's going on?" I'm in the front seat with him, and I'm like, "Yeah, what is he doing?" But yeah, I will welcome female drivers. I do see them on the motorbikes, but I'm not getting on anyone's motorbike. I don't think motorbikes are safe, especially the way they drive in Bangkok and in Manila. I don't want to risk my life on a motorbike, and I don't feel comfortable wrapping my arms around a random person. That's no. Mullen says, yeah, the syrup thing felt like the sports thing. Red skin is our N word, but I don't give two chicken nuggets. What uses or says it. Soon KFC logo, Wendy's, everything will be taken wrong someday. No, not exactly. KFC, the logo is the founder, Colonel Sanders. Wendy's is the logo is the daughter of the founder. So I think those will stay as they are. As far as the Redskin thing, I used to be largely against that for the longest time until I found out that the logo, that the both the logo and the name of the Washington Redskins was actually an homage to to the the Blackfeet people of Montana. That's where it was actually they actually crafted that image from um, the the chief at the time and the term like for them that was not. This is why it's controversial because you have like 540 federally recognized tribes in the United States, and not all of them see the term redskin as a pejorative. And the ones and many of the ones who say that it is pejorative and should never be used, these are usually not people even living on the reservation. These are usually college educated people who live off the res. So not to say that that invalidates their their feelings on the use of the term, but uh, in defense of the Washington Redskins, because they have mentioned this a long time ago, and I just never believed it until I actually saw it verified myself by these folks. Is that yeah? I mean, it was actually based off some people from the Blackfeet tribe in Montana. Like that, the image actually was an actual person that they modeled the logo after, and the term Redskin came from them. Like they were given that term to use, so they didn't do it, to be. They didn't set it out to use it in a pejor to basically like poke fun at a pejorative term for a bunch of people. But that's the prop. But again, that's the problem when you have 550 different federally recognized tribes. They don't all share the same beliefs on these sort of things. So I don't know how you come into agreement with something like that when if if half of them are saying they don't care, the others saying they do care, and then you have the actual people from which it came, and they're like, well, we don't mind because we're the ones who told them to use it in the first place. What do you do with that? Like I know Trump has already intimated that he wants the Washington Redskins to go, well, the Washington, they call themselves the champions, the commanders. Sorry, he's already intimated that he wants the Washington Commanders to go back to using um, the old the old name. So that's to be seen whether that happens. But like I said, just to be fair, not to invalidate anyone's thoughts on that, but that did actually they actually did receive their blessings from the Blackfeet tribe of Montana to for the logo and the name. So, Joseph, yeah, I guess it was kids. It was for kids. It was a stereotype, but at the same time, they were very successful. Maybe they could have just redone their picture. They have completely erased them. I think people that's but that was I think that was the intention was just to completely erase it. I think if they merely changed the image, a lot of people would have still complained, right? Um, because people both rejected not only the image, but the calling it Aunt Jemima or Uncle Ben's rice. So they change, again, I'm not exercised about it now as I'm older because I was again more liberal and cared about silly things like that. Where now I just see it them as part of like a bit of cultural iconography when you look at stuff like that. Carlos has always thought that Quaker Oats guy was a plantation master. Nah, he was supposed to be like an image of a Quaker from like the 1800s. Like if you remember Poltergeist 2, the guy from Poltergeist 2 to me was like an evil version of the Quaker Oats guy. He used to scare the shit out of me too. When I used to watch Poltergeist 2 as a kid, that guy terrified me. He wants us all in his holy temple. Carol Ann, give us Carol Ann. Melissa, Melissa's trying to say the best. The left, left, the left. Melissa says, yeah, they are cracking down on bad drivers, but good they should. Yeah, I didn't have any bad drivers in Thailand, but the only problem I did have in Thailand is they would drop us off in places. They would pick us up at places that they know they're not supposed to go. And so like the Thai police came once and told us we had to get out the car because they're not supposed to pick us up there. And so I was like, I understand. I was like, well, he can't pick us up in front of here because it's a temple. I said, can they go up? I said, can I get them from across the street? And the policeman was like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I was like, cool. And then like I remember my wife though, she was knocked out in the in the car. And he was like, you guys gotta leave. And I was about to get mad at the cop. I'm like, give me a second. I have to get my wife. She's asleep. He's like, tell her she needs to go. I'm like, bro. He clearly like he probably thought she was Thai though, and so she must have known better, because that happened a few times. People thought she was Thai when we were there. Like it was a woman at a record store came up to us and just started talking to her in Thai, and my wife looked at me, started laughing. She was like, "This girl thinks I'm Thai." I'm like, "Try." I was like, "Shit, try to get us a deal." But that, yeah, I mean, now I realized that now, but at the time I was getting mad. I could have ended up getting arrested because I was about to tell the cop, man, you need to shut the f up, because he was like, you need to get out the car. I'm like, my wife is tired. Let me get her out the car, bro. He's like, yeah, y'all gotta go. I'm like, all right, chill. But and I mean, it's not just because he was. And I wasn't doing that because he was Thai or whatever. I would have done that to an American policeman too if they tried that. Like you can disrespect me. You can't disrespect my wife. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I am. So when so nudged her away. I was like, hey, we gotta go. I was like, they can't pick us up from here. And that happened like two times. Like they tried to pick us up from somewhere, and like at least one guy, when we booked the Uber, he was like, we can't book. He said we can't pick you guys up from here, and he explained why. I was like, oh, okay. But he was trying to be, but one of them was trying to be sneaky about it. I was like, nah, we'll just go to I said, we'll just book it from a different location. Um, but yeah, other than that, I didn't have a problem with safety when it came to driving. That was only in the Philippines. Um, like especially like I said with Manila, like this guy, like I said, he clearly was under the influence of something. Like he was wilding. Like he was taking it. Like he just took his hands off the steering wheel. At one point, I think he put his foot on the steering wheel. He like I was like, what is he doing? I was like, I got both my mom and my wife in the car. Like if he crashes, like they can get hurt. So I'm like, yeah, he's. Mm-mm. But like I said, I didn't have the safety issues in Thailand. It was just the hygiene was the hygiene wasn't up to snuff in Thailand. Because like I said, jumped into a few. We jumped into a few cars where it stunk. Someone says, "Yeah, I see your point about the Native American thing." He said, "Commanders is a dumb name too. Either way, right? It's yeah, it's corny. Commanders. Like I'm pretty sure since because even though the even though the Washington team was not a successful team in the 2000s, 2010s, they still had one of the largest NFL franchises in the league, just like the Cowboys. They haven't been winning since the 90s, but they're still one of the largest franchises in the league. Joe said, yeah, they didn't take down Lil Debbie, Quaker Guy, Chef Boyardee, Burger King mascot. He said, which is creepy. They made him. He didn't used to be creepy though. That wasn't. He didn't originally look creepy. The way they image him now, he looks creepy. And I think it's creep. it's mainly creepy because because when you put the person in the costume and he has a face that's not a human face, that's what makes it creepy. But with Ronald McDonald, since he's actually using his actual face with makeup, it doesn't come off as creepy, except for people who dislike clowns. Yeah. Moon says, "Yeah, agree with Joe." He said, um, "The mascot outfit and face always effing bugged me out." The Burger King mascot, but at one point, I think they made him look funny looking on purpose because they were trying to appeal to an adult to adults as opposed to kids, and so he was supposed to look kind of zany looking, I guess. But it did come off kind of creepy. I admit that because he has a non-emotive, he has a non-emotive face. It's just a person walking around in a costume, but with like a just a mask for a face, and it just comes off as creepy. It's a Coca-Cola says Santa Claus. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's anything racially insensitive about Santa Claus. If anything, they all get Santa Claus wrong because the original Santa Claus was a Turkish man, so he should actually be brown. Like technically, Santa Claus should look more like Chink Uger from the Young Turks. That's what he should look like. He should have that olive complexion, be chubby like Chink Uger with the dark hair. That's more what Santa Claus should look like. The original Saint Nick from who was a I guess a priest from Turkey. I'm sure most people don't know that because they probably assume Santa Claus is from the north, like some sort of. They probably picture him as being a man from Scandinavia, and he's not. He the original Saint Nick was a a I believe a Catholic priest in what is now modern day Turkey. So, and because of what he did, he was later canonized by the church, by the Holy Roman Church, and then he his Santa Claus was then you know his 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 image was then made to look like uh, more Northern European to fit him being used in their religious in their pagan celebrations like the Yule of Germany, the Yuletide. That's actually a pagan, a German pagan thing, or Saturnalia that the ancient, that the Romans practice. Another pagan holiday that was mixed in with Christmas. So, but yeah, I don't think Santa Claus is going anywhere. And plus they didn't invent the Santa Claus either. They Coca Cola invented reindeer. I mean, sorry, not reindeer. They invented Rudolph, but they didn't invent the Santa Claus image. Wait. I think they wait. I think yeah, the modern day image of Santa Claus was actually created by Santa Claus, but they didn't start the whole Santa Claus thing. Like that existed prior to Coca Cola, but I think the modern day image of him in the red suit with the black buckled boots and all of that. I think that image is actually I think from Coca Cola as is the invention of Rudolph the reindeer. Joe says, Santa, can you bring me a new wife for Christmas? The one I have now is always yelling at me. I hope she ain't watching this. That's why I got a Filipino wife. See, when they get mad at you, they don't yell at you. instead they give you the silent treatment, which is called tampo, which is the what the funny thing is what Filipinos don't understand is giving an American man the silent treatment backfires because we actually enjoy that because we're used to American women when they get mad, they go off and yell at you all the time. They do the exact opposite, which I guess affects their men. I guess their men don't want them to go silent on them. Us, they go silent on us and we're like, cool. My wife's done that to me a few times. I remember one time she got silent and like, so she didn't cook or whatever. She was mad. And so I went downstairs and got food because the condo we were living in, like I told people before, the condo was part of a bigger part of a bigger community that was both a mall and a condominium. So downstairs was a condominium, and all the residences, excuse me, all the residents of the condo, we have our own um, residential elevated that takes us in directly into the mall from the condo. And so, I went down there and bought us some food. And so she still was like not talking to me. And so I was eating my food. And I was like, I've got you something. And she didn't say anything. She just looked at me with a side eye, looked at the food, took it, and went back into into our bedroom and ate it. So obviously she liked it because I picked something I thought she would like. I think I got like a chicken sandwich or something. I bought a burger from this restaurant that's no longer there, but they used to make really good food. And I was like, and she laughs about it now because she was like, "Yeah, that food was good," but I wasn't going to tell you that because I was mad at you. It was just so funny when she looked back at me when I handed her the food, and she just like, yeah. So our Filipinos make some of the greatest wives. You just gotta make sure you don't marry a bar girl like some of these morons do. But yeah, um, because as women will be women no matter where you are in the world. Yeah, that's true. But they don't. But what I would say is the software is different in different countries. This is why the passport bro movement is a thing because you can go overseas and you'll find women who don't act like women here. So and they tend to look better because women overseas are less high calorie. I can't say the FAT word because last time I used that when I talked about when I had my discussion with you guys about thick women, it got demonetized because obviously FA calling people FAT is not advertising friendly. Anyway, so I'm gonna end this here. But like I said, the original discussion for people watching this on replay later was the fact that uh, the, the presidential administration plans on sending National Guard to 19 different states to crack down on illegal immigration and on crime. And I listed off those states for people who may live in those places. None of them are blue states, and unfortunately, it's the blue states who need them the most. So we'll see how that goes. Joseph, where would man be without women in the Garden of Eden? I don't know. Yeah, we would, but we'd be there just beating our meat. So I don't know. I don't know. You gotta. It's trade offs. You know, having some good, or living in paradise by yourself. Because this Trump cracking down on crime will save lives. Yeah, they will. It's like we had an illegal immigrant who got a CDL in California. He doesn't even speak English, and he mowed down three people because he's driving an 18 wheeler and wasn't qualified to do so. and somehow he was given a CDL both in California and Florida. He fled Florida back to California, and they extradited him back to Florida. So now he's going to be sent. He's going to be, sentenced. And Florida already said he's going to serve his time before they let him get before he's deported back to India. Harjinder Singh. They already caught his brother too, who's also an illegal immigrant. He's getting deported. So I welcome it. Joe says, "Yeah, I missed the beginning of this. Sorry for all the off the wall comments." No, no, that's good. He said, "I'm an only child. I function well in that setting." Yeah, but I still need women. Now, women will say, "Yeah, we don't need men," but I think most men, realize we do need women. And for the women who do say they don't need men. That's because they don't realize how much of society runs through the efforts of men. The infrastructure was shut down in a week without men. Sanitation, energy, the power grid, um, trans like mass trans not mass transportation of goods through the interstate system. Like most of the truck drivers are men. Most of the people who work in sanitation are men. Most of the people who work in nasty stuff like on oil derricks, men. Most of the people who keep the power grid running, men. Most of the men who do things like the trades, like plumbing and electricians and all that, men. Like the infrastructure will completely shut down in a week without men. They should be lucky that men haven't given up at any point, and it is only because of video games and corn that men are sedated enough to keep going through the inequities of American life. At any point, if these younger men just gave up on video games and corn and just said, "Hey, we're out. We don't care. We don't care what's going on anymore," society would crumble. Or even worse, if these guys were just like, "If you're not gonna give it to us, we just gonna take it." Who could stop them? So they should be lucky that these guys are happy with their video games and corn and living to go their own way as opposed to taking what they feel is owed to them by society, because these women thinking that they could live on their own without men are clueless. They tried that once on Survivor. No, no, not Survivor. What's the reality show? Uh, Bear Grylls. They couldn't make it like 2 days without needing the men's help before. Meanwhile, the guys has completely started had already fashioned their own hierarchy to get things done on the island, and were like eating and having a good time. The women were in were in danger of not being able to feed themselves or do anything. Um, he said, "Yeah, I guess so." Carlton said, "I saw that video. The guy was looking like it was another day on the road." Yeah, he didn't even express any emotion for the fact he just ended three people's lives. He looked like he was completely clueless. Like, I'm gonna be fair and say, being that he was caught in the moment, he probably didn't process what happened, and that's fair. Maybe at the time when you see him on video, as soon as the accident happened, he didn't have time to process what happened. But at the same time, I don't feel sorry for him, especially being that he comes from the most successful ethnic group in America, which are Indians. They are the most successful, and right under them are Chinese Americans. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go out on a limb, knowing people like my old best friend who was Indian, and say that most Indian Americans aren't gonna defend a fresh off the boat Indian who came here and killed three innocent Americans because they were too incompetent to drive a truck. I don't think you're gonna find too many Indian Americans defending him. Carnes says women are not working on those oil rigs in the ocean or king crab fishing. Yep, that's another one. Crab fishing. Yep, exactly. Joe says most of the people who are gay are men. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Well, well, if I want to be pedantic, then by definition, all men are gay because homosexual women are lesbian, right? And then you get into all the other alphabet stuff. And like I said, everything after LGB is just people with mental illness who are gay. That's it. Because all these other different distinctions without all these all these other distinctions they make after that are not useful and typically are most of these folks have mental health issues, which is like I said, it's not a coincidence that Pride Month and Men's Mental Health Awareness Month fall on the same month. Men's Mental Health Awareness Month was put intentionally in the same month as Pride Month because they know that a lot of people in that community are dealing with mental health problems, and these are mostly men. Carnes wasn't an Indian shipping that knocked down the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Uh, I don't remember who it was that owned it. By the way, they still haven't fixed it, but I don't remember who, to be honest. So I'm not gonna make up anything because I can't. I don't actually know. I assume they were American, but I could be wrong. But anyway, I'm out, guys. But folks can keep the conversation going in the comment section after I upload this. Um, After I had to blast that one female troll, I've stopped dipping into the comment section to give my for when people say something intentionally inflammatory just to try to get a response. Now, ironically, people who do want to make inflammatory remarks in the comment section, it actually helps me because they don't realize the more people comment in the comment section, the more traffic is generated to the post. So, but whatever. But all right, good night to everyone. Um, Thanks, Joe. Um, Everyone, take care. I still plan on having Micah back so that she could thank you guys for the donations. Because I believe you gave. I know Carlton gave something. I think you did as well, Joe, and then so did my moderator Agatha. So I wanted her to come back on the channel and acknowledge that she got the the, uh, the donations from me through you guys. Thanks to you. So thanks, guys. Take it easy.